on the east coast of the United States. I have no idea what time it is down and under, but it is time for Shiny Side Out with Dave and Mecky. So I hope you have your tinfoil hat all made and cinched down tight over your ears. So take it away, Dave and Mecky.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dave. Sadly, it looks like Mecky, who's the second half of Shiny Side Out, can't make it on the show tonight. He may not make it. He might make it, he may not. Let's see what happens. I'm broadcasting, as you can probably tell from the accent, I'm broadcasting from Australia for Revolution Radio on revolution.radio, which is the website's net address. And you'll find that it is home. It's the home of fresh ideas. You can buy some merchandise or donate if you like anything we say. Join us in the chat room where I am right now, and you can talk to us while we're on air. This, believe it or not, is show number, drumroll, I'll add that in post, 695. We're 5 shows away from 700 shows. That's pretty cool. And these are weekly shows. We've been doing 14 years. Pardon me, and I've got some kind of mad cough, and I can't, it's so sporadic and instantaneous that I can't possibly mute for it. So apologies. If I leave enough gap, then I can take it out in post or in one of the reels. Tune in to us online on your smart device directly via an app, and I mean application for everyone who's a boomer, or listen at home on a Gray's Tabletop Digital Radio. If you missed the last show, I know who was on because I was talking to Russ in the green room, and I like the green room. It's a little place you hang out before and after a show. I was there, which is really cool. But if you, like I did, missed the show, don't even worry about it, because you can just access the station's archives, which is free, and you can download or catch it up, anything you've missed. And you can binge, so you can download the whole lot all at once. All at once. In MP3 format, and listen offline even if you want. Oh, I'm going to cough again. As long as it is, well, touch wood, as long as there's no cancer. I'm alright. Now, where was I? That's right, you can tell by my accent that I am broadcasting in a dark and junk country, and both Mecky and I acknowledge the traditional custodian of the land where we are, and I'm in dark and junk country. He would normally be in Daruk country, and I think we're going to shorten that to just broadcasting out of. But it does remind us all that the lands we're on were looked after much better than we are looking after them. We exploit the dickens out of them. That's what we do. I remember a textbook when I was growing up. It was a textbook, and I had encyclopedias, but the textbook itself mentioned specifically every country and what its individual exploits were. Isn't that something? That means what big business was exploiting about that country. Its exploits were coal and gas, oil, possibly diamond, gold, uranium. Those were the things that were important back then. Silver, cadmium. You name the things, whatever they were, very important to remember the way we used to think. Right now, the green new way of looking at everything is distorting our view somewhat. Now, I believe in weather and I believe in climate. I also recognize that there are some countries in the world who don't care about anything except for continuous and forever perpetual growth. We're kind of lucky. I'm going to put it another way. I think we're lucky. I live in a country which isn't polluting as much as it could. I live in a country that outsourced, like everybody else. It outsourced most of our manufacturing. Like, we used to do it really well. You know, when you give someone else a task and it's the bare minimum just to survive ticking a box. Well, that's what we've done. And it was cheaper. So the company we're buying it from no longer produces it locally. And it's outsourced and then comes back and then they just sell that because that's cheaper. But it's inferior. Honestly, terrible product. We would have been better off keeping our things and making them ourselves. And manufacturing, be damned if you're going to send it overseas and get an inferior product, but people just, people buy it, so it must be all right. No, it's kind of not. And what we've done is we've outsourced the dangerous or hazardous materials handling. We've outsourced the production of electricity for the manufacturer. We've outsourced the shipping as well, because we could ship it, all the materials, to another country. It's manufactured into a product and we buy it back, even for less than we could have made it ourselves, even with the shipping cost added on. I just think that's extraordinary. I would have preferred initially just to maintain our own economy and made it ourselves, polluted ourselves, dangerous goods handling ourselves, because we have higher standards for individual safety. You can complain all you like, and I'm hearing all the voices in the ether crying out, "Oh, but the unions make it too expensive." Well, our wages make it kind of expensive. But if we didn't have a forever chasing profit companies with a wage of let's call it the C-level wages, opposed to the frontline workers' wages, if we didn't have this forever expanding distance between those two, to be, the C-level wages are at least 10, a couple of orders higher. It could be 100 times. The CEO could be 1,000 times what the frontline worker makes in one of our countries. It's crazy that we've let that happen. The wages initially for people running a company was high for the purposes of preventing them from being bribed, because they earned so much and at their level became impossible to bribe them. Now I'm not sure if that's even a consideration, given that there's so many people today who are in it for the money, for the greed. They're connected to all the wrong people. The products get made at a fraction of the cost as they used to, and the costs keep rising. They don't pass the cost saving on to us. A friend of mine good friend of mine. He's a welder. You could call him a boilermaker because that's a specific skill that you don't just, you don't, you're not doing it day one. He was quite good at his job. And he said the company, they used to do all the welding of all this equipment. And then they only worked in a single like office, regional office. And all of those machines, someone higher up in the office had signed a deal to have them made overseas. And when they came back from, being produced, they might have ordered 10,000 of them. But then they still needed the same people that were doing the welding on the original equipment before it was outsourced. That they then had to clean them up and bridge the weld gaps. He said there was at least a 1/4 inch gap where someone had tried to weld it, but the pieces the parts weren't even touching each other by 1/2 inch, and they just started welding, tried to bridge the gap with weld to make it and they still weren't even connected. And they've been powder coated at this point. So when they get to when they got to my friend's workshop, they had to angle grind all of that off, prep it, cut it, vise it together, and then weld it properly, and then have it sent off to re-powder coating. And my mate's going, you know what? That's cost us 3 times the amount of the cost of the item that we used to build them for. We could build them quicker. Sure, they didn't. When he built them, they didn't need all the effort because they were made in one go. All the welds were tight. They were much better welds. Even the steel is better when we were making them on our own, not buying foreign steel, but making it with the steel from our own country. Then I started talking to a friend of mine who he worked in local government, and he was talking about some new projects. This is 10 years ago now, a decade ago, and he was talking about a new project, and I didn't want to ask who won the tender to supply there was a pedestrian over freeway bridge or something similar to that. So it's a very large span, and it had kind of a curve from beneath the deck over the deck and then down beneath the deck, and it was half made like a suspension bridge, but it wasn't. It was a fixed deck, all fixed welds. The thing was solid, but that arc was what was basically holding the weight of the deck and the people, obviously. I did engineering, so just trying to make it so you understand. If you can visualize it, so there's a whole bunch of stringers or verticals that hold the arc to the deck to the arc, and yeah, it's good. Now, he was talking that the stainless steel quality number, there's some kind of number that's associated with stainless steel of different grades, so that gradient. And he said, well, they specified this grade number, whatever it is. They didn't get that. They tested it. It was certified as that. They didn't get that. They tested a piece, and it was anywhere like, yeah. The invoice said it was that material, but it wasn't. And so they got ripped off there. And at the same time as, well, they got, oh, well, we have to modify it then and make this strengthening things. And they did work on it. It cost more than what it would have cost if we'd built it, because then we had to modify what they'd built. And at the time of installation, there was a spate of the same. I don't want to be terrible, but a spate of pedestrian bridge collapses around the world. and they were all suffering from the same problem: underrated steel. So either the steel was too thin, it was never, like, the engineer on our side did all the calculations, and the tubular thickness, the interior versus the exterior diameter of the piece, and the thickness of the wall thickness, all of those things, the grade of steel, blah 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 blah. Oh, the number of stays, all the things that are really important to it, right? And he said these are nothing like what we, as an engineer, what we designed. And then studying the others, and they all talked to each other, and they were finding that it was a common thing when ordering from overseas. And I can't understand that, to be honest. If it's already cheaper and you've just won a bid for as a race to the bottom in an RFP, if you know what that is, do comment in the chat room, or if you're watching this live on any platform, or I've reel, do comment below if you're familiar with this, what I'm talking about, and then a secondary, if you're familiar with this practice of this race to the bottom of doing a bid for an RFP and then supplying something hideously under spec. If you've ever had that experience, do comment. Don't try and name people. I don't want that. Just, have you had that experience? Because I think that's so appalling. It isn't funny. It really isn't. But lives are at stake here. And if profit over lives is really important to you, whoever you are, in whatever part of the chain that was in the process of from the engineer all the way to the manufacturer and shipping and then installation and then maintenance, if you're anywhere in there and you recognize that as being a strength of, let's say, proper engineering, proper manufacturing, proper installation and maintenance, but then you notice something wasn't right, and that could be a post-install, post-maintenance check, where you've now, hang on a minute, something's wrong about this, and then point it out, talk to us. You can even PM us. We have channels and videos everywhere, so try and reach out. So questioning, when you start to question that process where profit is above safety, once you recognize that it's there, the first action that you should take is to advise the right persons. When you've found something that highlights the blatant disregard for human life, but favors profit, that's something that should definitely be talked about and advertised and made public. So one of the things that I know I've spoken about this before, and I do want to make this one brief. When we had air flights at the commonality of 2018, 2019, you didn't give second guess, right? Flying somewhere, international, domestic, didn't matter. It's just, I just hop on a plane, just like hopping on a bus. Just gonna hop on a plane. It's all good. I'll be there, and not a second thought about maintenance, not even one. We got past the DC-10 era where there was an inordinate amount of DC-10s which were having problems, and then we saw some Boeing software issues later. Not the same time, because when I grew up it was all DC-10s. That's the one that had the engine in the tail fin. If you remember those, they had 3 engines. So meant to be a really safe plane with an extra engine which the plane could land on if it needed to. But I want to take this a step further. So during COVID, when all the planes were parked for a very long time, a couple of years, and then brought back into service, our existing maintenance schedule for aircraft was based purely on flying hours. The replacement of all the parts. We've been doing it for 60 years. So we knew that if a plane is up in the air for this long, the part is going to have a failure rate of this many hours. So cut it back 10, 15, 20% in hours and replace it before it fails. Fantastic. And I'm not just talking about tires or O-rings, because that became popular when "need another 7 astronauts" became a phrase. But the engine disassembly, the what are ultrasonics they did on the blades to make sure there was no cracks in the cowling. All of the rivets were checked. The windows, the reason why we have curved, almost porthole round, they've got a very wide radius corner. If you haven't noticed, they're not square. They don't go down to a point like you do at home. Those windows were as a result of many flights where a compression and decompression of the aircraft over so many numbers of decompressions occurred, and compressions, where that would cause a hairline crack from the corner to run out to another piece of the aircraft which was maybe a little bit more flexible, and those square edges became a radius, a curve, and that stopped that from happening. So the evolution of plane windows came as a result of a number of planes just after a certain amount of flying hours started to develop issues, depressurizations, and eventually they were all grounded. All of that type were grounded, and they put them into a large water vessel, like a submarine, treating it like a submarine and putting it under pressure, pressurizing the hull and depressurizing, and doing that over and over again until they simulated the same failure and discovered where it was. Now, because this plane fuselage was sitting inside a water tank, and they could recover it all intact, that's how they discovered that you needed a radius on it. So that became a thing for all planes, to have radius on the corners. When COVID hit, we saw planes grounded, and their maintenance schedule for flying hours were just paused. Tires were amount of landings, right? Because you don't pre-spin the tires up, you just land, and each one of them burns the tire away. You see a big puff of white smoke as the rubber incinerates itself with the friction as it attempts to reach the same speed as the aircraft on landing. That rotational speed is driven by the amount of weight and momentum and the effort of the plane squashing it against the tarmac, and then the coefficient of friction between the two of them in order to spin it up. And so just from the rubber perspective on those, I get that, but rubber deteriorates when it's not used. It can dry out and then crack and fail. The bearings, where all of the grease, for instance, might settle without being constantly kept warm and lubricating the bearings. The skins of the plane will undergo a lot of heat and cold stress for 2 years because it's a daily heat and cold stress, without them experiencing their full stretch under the conditions of the exterior of the plane and the sub-temperatures that the plane skins have. All the composite materials now and all the adhesives that hold it all together, every single one of those was put under a new type of condition, which was never measured. So when planes were then, after COVID, put back into service again, the thing that we found as researchers, the things we found were that some planes, hydraulics, whose O-rings and valves had dried out for such a long time because they weren't in perpetual use. If you have rubber O-rings and pressurized pistons inside a hydraulic system, and they're perpetually submerged in their fluid of choice, then they stay flexible and young-like. They don't dry out and get cracked and old and then fail. I was on an aircraft whose life during COVID was being parked somewhere safe and not flown because people weren't flying. They needed to do something with these aircraft, and so they just parked them. And we landed at nearly 200 knots with all the emergency vehicles down the side of the runway. The pilot even said, just ignore the vehicles on the side of the runway. And instead of being we did stop, but because the flaps didn't come down, they were stuck and frozen at like the first notch, like 1 degree or 2 degrees or 2.5, whatever it is. So we were coming in so hot and flat that we couldn't maintain the like 20 degree or 30 degree glide path. We were coming in full bore, almost flat to the runway over the water, because at Sydney Airport we first attempted to come down over Tempe, which is a really steep glide path. I think it's 30 degrees or thereabouts or more or greater. And when we were coming in, they tried to deploy the flaps, just believed them to be working, had to do a lot of thrust work to try and keep the plane up because we didn't have enough lift. That's a common thought about what's recently happened. And when we came in, we were going too fast, and they gave us a flyby or fly-through. We took back off again and burnt all the fuel off until we were on fumes. And then they had this wonderful plan to come in over Botany Bay as flat as we could and just set it down. Reverse thrust still was on, or the air curtain method they have these days, that was working just fine. But instead of parking at a gate, we didn't. We kept taxiing directly to maintenance. And when we stopped, all the maintenance people came out with their mobile phones and were filming it and all discussing it between each other, looking at each other and, oh my God, I can't believe it. Look at that. They landed with no flaps, right? It was nuts. I've seen the flaps hanging all like on a 747, hanging all the way down. Just extraordinary to get, because a plane wing is symmetrical, top and bottom, almost. And it itself doesn't produce nearly any lift at all. And that's why you have a leading edge drape that comes down. I don't know the technical term for it, off the front of the wing to allow more of a curve at the top curve. And the rear flaps on the wings protrude down or hang down to give more lift at slow speed. So I know what it's like. And most of the people on board just didn't really pay much attention to it, but I was watching it on Flight Radar, watching our own flight on Flight Radar. And my wife's going, what's going on? I said, the flaps didn't, because window seat, flaps didn't deploy. We're going to have to come in hot for sure. They're just testing it now, turning systems on and off. Look, it's no good. We're gonna come in hot. So don't tell the kids anything, and just we'll be bracing for impact. All right. And she goes, we're going to be okay. And I go, well, yeah, we're on the longest runway we have, so we should be able to pull her up, and we did, and I was really thankful for the pilot's effort to be able to get us down. I know it's a long-winded story, but this is about maintenance and how the maintenance schedule didn't line up with the flight use anymore, as that constant use of the planes in the 2018-2019 era before they were all parked away, and flight hours was a thing. Now, maintenance is extremely important. Running a business for profit, absolutely, you need to run a business for profit. How much wage do you think you should pull to be able to run a business at profit? How many corners should you cut? What's the quality of the materials that should be used? How do you maintain a schedule of testing them? If you produce food in Australia, you have a requirement for cleaning all of the surfaces in and out of all the food production machines on probably a shift basis, or at least on a daily basis. Or if you're changing between materials, your food products, you must also clean those to remove the opportunity for cross-contamination between food sources. You think about those things that happen; they happen naturally. We ensure that is the case for food safety, and in Australia we're pretty stringent on food safety and food handling practices for all publicly available food types. I had a friend of mine that said, "Oh, I'm going to start a business," and I said, "Oh, good on you. What's the business?" "I'm going to cook food and sell it." I go, "Where are you going to cook it?" "Oh, at home." "Do you have pets?" "Yeah." "Oh, you can't do that then." So if you're going to cook food for a business, it can't be within proximity of pets. There's an opportunity there for contamination, and I think that's important to remember. So, how many of... Oh, I just got thrown because I read a message. Sorry about that, guys. How many of these regulations are you aware of? Because this will probably be a real that you know of that are in business in the pursuit that you're used to, in the type of employment or type of company, whether it's simply just manufacturing. Is it food handling? Do you produce food en masse? Are there large machines? I'm a big fan of how it's made and mega factories. I used to work in I think the largest under roof kitchen factory in the Southern Hemisphere. That's what they used to say anyway. Whether it was true or not, I'm not sure. But they went down the route of beginning to have fully automated kitchen production lines, including assembly. But I never saw the assembly through to working properly. So we did a lot of trials, and I left and moved on before I saw that, finalize itself. But wow, there's caged off robot arm areas where parts are stored. The computer knows where they were, and it was a big cry from a guy standing at, let's call it's basically a router table, but it's huge, and it would cut the pieces out in a certain way because they're laminated fiberboard, and so you had to cut through the first top layer and then the wood, and to keep it all in place you would cut the last layer, the bottom layer of the outside material, the substrate at this point, as a laminate. You'd cut that last one out last. But I think the cutting head was like $20,000. precision made thing, and it couldn't. There's no way you'd have it contact the surface that the wood was sitting on, the laminate material, because it would destroy it. So they had to have a sacrificial piece of wood that was sat underneath. It just always did my head in. It's like, why don't you can't use lasers? No, because it burns it. Oh. And now that replaced it. Instead of a person putting the boards on and doing it, the boards were then selected via a vacuum device, lots of suction cups, which were vacuum ones, and it would place the board on there in a particular orientation, and then cut as many pieces out from that board in one shot that it could, maximizing the amount of pieces for it, minimizing the waste, and then disposing of the waste into a recycling bin, taken back to the manufacturer, which was really interesting for incorporating in the next round of parts coming. So you can imagine that some of the kitchen material might have been 20 years old. Some of it might have been through that process of being cut and recycled, produced and shipped back, and then found the recycling area again, that part of the board that was recycled again. You can imagine how that might have been the case. So the point that I'm getting to eventually, I'm sorry because Meki's not here and I don't have someone to bounce my ideas off. But the point I'm trying to make here is that if you have a country that is born on stringent process safety and construction methods, has we have OH&S standards. We call it OH&S, or some people might just shorten it to OHS, standards for safety and human health conditions. Like if you're in a fiberboard cutting facility, you would imagine that breathing apparatus would be important. Vacuum suctioning of all of the particulates from the air into its own waste and recycling would be a thing. You would assume those things were really important. There are places in the world where that is not the case, that safety is the last thing in someone's mind. In fact, it may never enter their mind at all. And yet, because it's cheap, we'll happily click, proceed to cart and make our payment and wait the week for it to be delivered because it's way cheaper than we can produce it. What we've done is we've outsourced the pollution, all of the carbon cost, because that's going to become important. Not that I'm saying it's important. It's going to become important wherever you are at some point in the very near future. In the very near future. It's going to be very important. The life that we've lived up to now in the last, let's say 40 years, the boom of technology to what we have today. I love flat screens. Flat screens are awesome rather than those CRTs. Although I do miss being perpetually irradiated by a constant bombardment stream of electrons from the cathode ray tube. Oh, how I miss it, to be honest. I swear that there would have been an outline of my person, probably including my DNA, burst through my body onto the wall where I was a kid watching on the original black and white CRTs, which were huge. All valve driven too. I loved them. Oh my goodness. So the safety that we've developed, we admire, that we hold true to our civilization, I suppose. is not shared evenly across everybody. Profit is the number one in some or most cases. And it's a shame, because how much do we abandon when we choose the cheapest item? I'm not even, you know me, I'm not mentioning any brands here, because I think that fails everybody if I do that. And of course that would get me in trouble, because they can sue me. I don't want that. I mentioned something the other day. There's a reel that I've put out, and if someone can find that reel that you think would be the most contentious, do message me or comment in it on, oh, Dave, is this the one? Yeah, I'll tell you if it is it or it isn't. And you'll find our reels on Instagram and TikTok. They're on YouTube. Where else are they? Oh, of course, Facebook and X. If you find one of our reels and you think this is the reel that I'm talking about, it's so contentious that I only ask a question. And the question is, I can't say what the question is, because then you can Google it. And I ask questions because I'm more concerned about it, about if it were true. So there was a news article the other day, which I'm not even going to mention, but one of the famous people online did a half-an-hour piece on it. And then I found, not that, the person did the half-an-hour piece on the person, and then I found a news story related to it just pop up in my feed. And I don't know how real the news is. It's not from a confirmed site or anything. And without saying anything about it, I don't want to give it away. I want someone to find that reel and then make a comment if you can. I'll reply to it. It scares me how much power people can yield now. How much power people can yield. We've done so many stories in the last, 5 years. So many stories where we make a joke about slippery floors and open windows, and I'll say something in my worst Russian accent, typical KGB. See, told you it was bad. It's kind of the style of the KGB to send someone a flight test for them out the window, and they I don't think any have succeeded, but they might come across someone who can actually fly and survives it. That's a concern of mine. But the power that is there, possibly in what people might call the deep state, or at least the powerful, is frightening, because they could get away with things and are totally untouchable. It becomes there's a line. If you're thinking about the structure of society, wherever you are in the structure, from the let's call it the front line people, the people who are doing person-to-person interactions every day. And I've got my hand up. I'm not doing my video today, but I do that now. I never did. I was an IT person. I love being in a cubicle or fixing computers, because computers didn't seem to have the same emotional. I said that too loudly, I know. The emotional. The computers don't have the emotional. What am I looking for? Bandwidth spectrum that I'm typically concerned with. They don't. Sure, a computer, or say, if you had any single model versus any other model, there might be some with a personality. And I mean those that have a unique set of things that always go wrong with it. That's my personality. It's like shopping carts. You'll find that they have personalities. There's one that's absolutely terrible, and and maybe some brilliant ones that feel like they've just come off the manufacturing line. They just go straight. They feel like all the bearings are all lubricated. It just works. Oh, it's a pleasure. There's almost no friction. It's almost like they're not even there. You're holding it. There's almost no shopping cart there that you're pushing. And then there's some, where the wheel will go and wobble backwards or forwards or spin around for no reason whatsoever, and you're going straight. Yeah, it means it's slightly raised up, and you don't notice it. It could be like an eighth of an inch or a 16th of an inch, just enough so that it's not getting full bite on where its purchase on the ground is much less. Anyway, so computers for me have been fantastic because of their, they don't get emotional. I don't really like too much emotion, but now I'm doing one-to-one. I'm now delivering parcels for a company, and I'm glad to have a job after 14 months. It's fantastic. I've been contracting here and there and doing little bits of work, but nothing like a day-to-day, everyday job. It's still going to be there. It's waiting for me in the morning for me to be there. Some of the parcels are crazy heavy, but that's okay. We have tools to manage that. That, on the scale of the structure of our civilization, I'm in the person-to-person down the bottom, interacting with people on a daily basis. If you go up that tree, up to some point, from whoever you are, it doesn't matter who you are. If you have a manager and then mid-level management, middle management, upper management, C-level, directors and CEO, or above the CEO to, the board, or above the board to a government official who, officiates over that industry type, or higher, going into government, your representative, congressperson, up into government, mid-government, high government. What about above government? Above president or prime minister, above there? Are there people who are directing and pulling the strings? Are the people who just get what they want because they donate money to government or countries? Are there people who are just entirely wealthy enough not to do anything at all and just get their way all the time, and we don't even know who they are? I'm going to say yes. But at what point can you draw a line separating a group who's above you from the rest of civilization and say they can do anything they want and get away with it? Is it politicians? Some politicians? Any? Where is it? I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying I'm asking a question. Where is that line to where they could just have someone extinguished, for want of a better word? Where is that line in our civilization? It might not even be as high up as you think. I wonder. Because I don't know. That's my question. If it's simply world leader or in high politics or something, I'd believe that. I could believe it. But it worries me. It really does. And so the piece that I put out, I'm so concerned having put it out, but hopefully I'm more looking for answers than making a statement. That's what I'm doing. And I don't know. It's kind of, can you be found guilty of making a statement if you're asking a question? I don't think so. The legality around it, I'm not accusing anyone. In fact, I don't even use names. And I'm more concerned about the situation itself. So hopefully, hopefully that's okay. I did notice that someone made someone else aware of what I'd posted, and that's why I had to bring it up, and it's been kind of top of mind at the moment, since I've already had my brakes cut and I survived and had to get them fixed. I mean, twice. One was a handbrake cable that was cut, and the other time I had all of the brake fluid removed from my vehicle. All of it. Even in the lines. There was nothing. I mean, all. That. Not even at all. And I just parked it after a 6.5 hour drive successfully with no oil on the ground and no damage to any of the lines at all. Not even the booster was damaged. There was nothing wrong, and yet all of the brake fluid was removed. If I attempted to drive the vehicle at all, I would have stacked it straight away, because I live on there's a driveway that's exceedingly steep, and I would not have been able to do anything. The brake pedal went straight to the floor. There was nothing, absolutely nothing. So if I've upset someone so much that that's occurred, I wanted to back away just a little bit. I almost thought about quitting talking about anything. I really don't post much, to be honest. I only have these discussions because what we'd like to do is talk about the implications of what is occurring in the world and throw our own little, anecdotes in, and our experience and how that might relate to either us or you or the world as a whole. That's the basis of why we do the show in two parts. One is news, and this is without Meki. It seems like a very long hour, and I don't want it to be for you, but you can hear how I've thought about this, and that's kind of the most important thing. We've got 2 minutes left for this show for the first hour. When we come back, I will be talking about, let me have a look, I'll bring it up. So that'll be Human-Animal Hybrids Part 6. I'll attempt to do all of the pronunciations of all of the people's names to the best of my ability. But in the meantime, what I'd like you to do, if you find or come across in your daily interwebbing, any of our reels or our videos, do like and share, comment and subscribe, because we have 90% of the people who watch our things aren't subscribed to us. That would be fantastic if you could do that. Do me a favor, and it helps with the algorithm. Sharing it helps with the algorithm. Commenting helps with the algorithm as well, and gets us a greater perimeter of being able to get impressions out there for our work. And if we can bring people to the station, it helps support the station, and that's really what we're doing. That's what we want to do. So the latest video I did was just basically thank you to the station and like a little snippet from our intro. But tell us what you like. Tell us what you'd like us to talk about or research, and we'll do that. And hopefully we haven't done it, but if we have, we're glad you point Lee in the right direction, or we'll put the show together and be able to bring you the information that we can find. Look, if we can do all that research and you don't have to, you win. Don't you? I think you do. Anyway, so this is the end of the first hour. I do want you to take the time while the break is on to relax, possibly have a toilet break. I know it's late. And take the time to donate, maybe buy some merch from the station's website. If you like anything we say. Now, I hopefully have triggered some memories today and some thoughts, and be able to, I can see the break has started. We're going to catch you after the short break with Human Hybrid part 6. And it'll be, if you're watching this on YouTube or any other platform, it'll be a brand new stream for the second hour.